Some people will probably not agree with many of the things said in this video, but a lot of people will understand it. And no matter who you are, if you understand it or don't understand it, or you disagree with it, or you agree with it, it will drastically change how you see your life, who you are, and the entire world around you. It will change everything. My two previous videos, I've been talking about things related to philosophy, the Bible, and theology. One of the greatest problems that human beings face right now is the problem of evil. And as you can see in this video, we're going to be talking about the problem of evil. I'm going to give you the answer as to why it's not necessarily the problem that atheists or skeptics claim it to be. Because atheists or skeptics claim that the problem of evil makes it unlikely that God exists, or makes it unlikely that even if God does exist, that he's either not omnipotent or he's not omnibenevolent. But I can show you otherwise with this short essay that I've written in the past 2 days through my extensive studies in the past. I wrote it in a script because a lot of the things are very, very in-depth, and just to make sure I remember everything, I'd like to read from the script. So beginning. Words might not be able to describe many things, but one of the most important things it can describe is the objectivity of truth. For example, I might say that truth is subjective, but that would be the objective truth. Therefore, truth would be objective and that statement is false. But how would we define the definition of objective? It would be not influenced by personal feelings or opinions and considering and representing facts. Another definition you might use for objective is obviously a goal. Therefore, truth in essence would be the factual state of one being at a certain time, or the factual state of a being in general. That objective goal set for us would be described as our purpose. So in the natural world, we exhibit things like trees, water, oxygen, etc. Things in the natural world, they have a natural objective that is set for them, such as the tree. Its purpose, or its objective, is to produce oxygen. Oxygen has the purpose to function as a source of power. Water, in the same way, might be used to replenish another thing. But all three of these things themselves provide order into the natural world. They all cooperate alongside each other to bring forth life into creation. So as human beings, what might be our objective? Since we exhibit the natural world as something which cooperates in order to bring forth continuous life into the outer world, we as subjective creatures exist in order to bring self-conscious life through the understanding of being into the world. Self-conscious life brings forth the ability for multiple things to understand the reality of their being, and being itself by the outward illumination of one's own attributes. The purpose of human feelings or opinions is to expand the understanding of one's own world in order to objectively define their own character and the whole world itself with the cooperation of every man and the objects within the natural world. So in other words, the purpose or objective of a subjective being is to function in a state of communion. Because without the outer world, human beings cannot understand who they are in entirety, or if they even exist. And that is the purpose of other persons. Other persons may help us discover who we are as well through the continuous illumination of one's own personality, and a third person bearing record of the communion between the two, moving that love beyond the two. So, human beings are seen to provide some sort of relationship with the natural world, or with things around us in general, and we might define this as love. How might we as human beings apply this attribute? You see that we humans are the ones who bring forth concepts and definitions of each thing relating to their function. We exhibit things within the natural world to function for a reason, allowing the universe to be a place where rationale isn't irrational. Now, one of the biggest questions is, where do all these attributes come from? Understanding that nothing within the natural world is infinite. Who provided these objects with rationale and these subjects with rationale to understand the information? Who was the predecessor of humanity? Due to the impossibility of the contrary, it would be God. In the Orthodox Christian faith, we exhibit God to have objective attributes, whilst also having subjective attributes, where the objective attributes distinguish him in terms of functionality and supernatural character, whilst the subjective side, which also cooperates with the objective side, is seen where God operates in a manner of communion with not only the created world, but also himself, which by St. Demetrius Noniloi define God as the divine personal reality. This is also why God is objective. But religion may seem difficult and obscure. Of course it is, right? But only because the world becomes progressively difficult, especially because of the natural corruption of the created world and the continuous confusion of man in understanding its purpose. The Eastern Orthodox Church is the perfect place where no one will find it difficult, for it's where we're meant to be. Neither will we find it in obscurity, for it can be met in the lowest depths of one's own being. Humanity bears the image of God, giving us the title of macrocosm, with God being the life of it all. Purpose of life, to unite creation with God to the highest degree and eternally, which Christ fulfilled as the Messiah and God. In Orthodox theology, God created man and creation for the purpose of communion, which explains why God is the objective, because, like I said, the purpose of life is communion. Now, skeptics claim that because unnecessary evil exists within the world, it makes it unlikely that God is either omnipotent, omnibenevolent, or non-existent overall. Though I would argue that the problem of evil is the outcome of the failure of man, which in of itself isn't self-preserving, as it is the natural inclination of that which is created. God providing man with the attribute of free will allows us to act according to our own will, as it is in the term free will. A skeptic might continue and ask why God gave us this ability of free will when he knew that we would fail in the world alongside us, ruining that state of communion. I would answer with, because it will allow God to expand further into the depths of man, to cooperate with him even further, and lead it into a higher state of being. Alongside raising the state of the human being might also raise the state of creation. We don't have the mind of a child, or operate in a fully autonomous manner where God would be able to control our will, diminishing the very purpose of the communion and the further expansion of understanding the self. Understanding that communion is the purpose of life, of being, then creating human beings without a free will would be against this very communion that God wishes to fulfill. In relation to God, growing in relation to all things, but granting to the human being the mind of a growing human, forever evolving the very image we were made in. Following into this higher calling would be the rest of creation as well, gaining a higher calling from God through man. Therefore, no matter what evil or problems exist within the world, we need to remember that man must take responsibility as the beings who alter the state of the world to the highest degree. We must also remember that no matter how many problems and pain there will be, such as the deaths of innocent children, God's purpose for every single being would not be missed, as the ontology of being is implanted within the very depths of our nature, and they will be called towards him no matter the state of their being, as the final purpose of being is communion with God. Now, as you can see, according to the Christian faith, and especially the Orthodox Christian faith, the problem of evil is not really a problem. Of course, it is a problem in the position of man, and we must always take responsibility for the problems that we cause and the problems that come to be within the natural world. We need to work together to fix these problems, because that's the only way to fix the problem, not by arguing against God. And if you have further questions, please comment down in the comment section. Feel free to critique however much you want. Just be respectful, and please don't call someone stupid. Thank you so much for watching, and I really appreciate it. God bless.